Hello there. You probably found this video because you found my GitHub repository and you'd kind of like me to walk you through it before you just throw it on your machine and give it a try. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes. I'll walk you through why I made this program, why I built in some of the things that I did, and also how I use it every day. So let's get started. So you can probably see here that I am in a virtual environment, and I called this out in the README, but you really should be running this in a virtual environment. It's going to keep things clean, and it's going to be a nice way to ensure that you install only the packages that you want to install, and it doesn't interfere with anything else that might be running on your system. Something else to note is that you do need to be running Python 3.7. I know 3.8 is out right now, but as I call out in the README, TensorFlow 2 is not compatible with 3.8 at this moment. I believe TensorFlow 2.2 will be. That's not out yet. So just make sure that you run a virtual environment with Python 3.7. If you do 3.8, it's going to not be able to find TensorFlow because it's not in the 3.8 repositories. So why did I make this? I had a number of break-ins around my house, like my backyard shed, cars in my driveway, and after each break-in, I would add a camera in that respective, part of my home. But I was like overwhelmed with like alert fatigue or just all this video I would have to go through because it records every time it detects motion, but that motion could be anything. It could be branches, it could be pets, it could be bugs, it could just be a lot of things. So there's no way I can go and check every piece of footage just because the cameras, detected motion. So I looked around for a solution to help me and I really couldn't find one. So I put this script together. Anytime that it detects a person-shaped object above a certain confidence percentage, it's going to make a note of that file, and it's going to save a screenshot of the frame where it found the person. So this is going to be a really, really useful tool for you to sort of like triage your footage. So me personally, I have a bash script that utilizes this script in the background, and while I'm at work every morning, it takes a look at the previous night's footage from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., digs through all of that. It's making notes of wherever it found people in those pieces of footage, and then at the very end, I get a text alert if it found anybody, and then in my email, I get attachments of all the screenshots where it found people. So 9 times out of 10, it's like me going to work or me taking the trash out. But it can be a really, really useful tool to say, hey, why was there somebody in my backyard at 3 o'clock in the morning? Or, oh, look, someone, tried my car door in my driveway at 4 in the morning. This is going to give you a really good place to start and let you know if you maybe need to dig into your surveillance footage a little bit deeper. Now, it can do pictures too. If you just had a bunch of pictures you wanted to go through and separate out which ones had people, which ones didn't, it can do that too, but it was primarily designed to do a folder of videos. And it's super simple. Right now I'm here just in our tutorial directory that I put together with some examples of pictures and videos to go through. So let's look at pictures. Like, how would you feed this folder of pictures into this Python script? So Python, and then my path to the script. Okay. And the -d flag just means directory, and we're going to point it at the directory that we want it to look at. Now you could also do -f and just give it one specific file if you wanted to, but I designed it to do folders, and it is recursive. So if you pointed it at, say, like your home directory, it's going to dig through every single folder and examine every single picture and video that it finds. I don't recommend doing that though. So here you can see where it went through and it's just saying, hey, I'm looking at this picture, I'm looking at this picture, hey, I found a person, hey, I found a person, hey, I found a person. Okay, cool, now what? So what it's doing while it's doing this is it's creating a directory with the current timestamp. And in that directory, it's creating a log file with the complete path to every single file where it found a person. And then it's taking that screen grab I was talking about of the frame where it found a person. So let's see what that looks like. I think that's probably the most useful part of this program. Let's pull one up. Okay, so with 94.55% certainty, it said, yeah, that's a person. Cool. And you'll notice that it only did the people, it only has people. It didn't, hit on, like a picture of a dog or a picture of a train or something like that. So that's pretty cool. But like I keep saying, this was intended to be used on videos. So let's see what that looks like. So I just went ahead and just dumped like all of my front door footage from a few nights ago. So each one of these MP4s represents about a 10 to 15 second video clip where the camera found motion. Now that could be like cars driving by on the street. It could be an animal on my front porch. It could be me getting home from work. It could be a lot of things. So I'm just going to feed this directory into our Python script. And again, -D, and our video folder. Now there are some other flags or some other options that we could be using. If you use the Twilio flag, that's what's going to enable the text message notifications. Now you do have to set some stuff up inside the script. You do have to feed it your Twilio credentials. You can either hard code them in, or you can use environment variables. That's what I do. But now it's going to send me a text message when it's done and say, hey, I didn't find anybody, or hey, I found some people. Check your log file. You can also use the email flag. Now this is going to send me an email with the log file and any of those screen grabs, any of those JPEGs of like, hey, here's what I found. And that can be super helpful because I normally get this when I'm at work and I can just scroll through really fast and say, okay, that's not something I need to worry about, or hey, I need to, jump on the app and dig through that footage a little bit deeper. So my everyday setup is looking at a folder of videos with the Twilio and the email flag set. And then if you want to, you can also change the confidence to anything between 1 and 100. So 1 being the lowest, that's going to give you a lot of false positives. 100% accuracy is probably not going to give you anything. The default is 65, and I found that pretty useful. The higher that you raise that confidence requirement, you do run the risk of maybe not catching somebody. The lower you push it, the more false positives you're going to get. So you might need to play with that depending on your lighting, your environment, things like that. The other flag you can use is frames. By default, it's only looking at every 10th frame. So this is a balance I found with my cameras between the frame rate they're capturing at and just the speed that most people move at. Like if there's someone like trying to get in my car, they're probably going to be in at least 1 in 10 frames somewhere on that footage. But it might not catch someone that just like ran past my front door. Now obviously the camera is going to trigger with motion, but if they weren't in that one frame that the program was looking at, it's going to miss them. So you really have to evaluate like what kind of motion, or like, what kind of motion are you expecting and how fast do you think this person is going to be moving. If you set that to 1, it's going to look at every single frame. If you set it higher, it's going to look at fewer frames and run faster, but you do run the risk of, missing some things. And the last flag is continuous. So by default, since it is looking at a bunch of small files, I only care the first time it finds somebody. So it's going to stop there, take that screen grab, and file that away in the log. If you use continuous, it's going to go through the entire video clip, still looking at every nth frame that you either told it to or 10 by default. It's going to look at every nth frame, and every time it finds someone, it's going to add that to the log, take a screenshot. This option is going to be great if instead of a bunch of small files, you instead have like one large file. Like if you just had 1 hour-long piece of footage, that could be helpful, because then it's going to find all the people-shaped objects, and you can scroll through and say, okay, they're fine, they're fine, they're fine. Wait, who's that? And then dig into that part of your footage deeper. So that can be useful, but I don't use that one as often. I just wanted to have it as a feature. Okay, so right now, let's just go ahead and get this going. Oops. And I just remembered that I don't have my Twilio credentials hard-coded onto my MacBook. So let's ignore that. Whoops. And I'm not going to have my email creds either. So we'll just run it like normal. Okay. And you can see up here that email set to false, text set to false, confidence is at 65, examining every 10 frames, continuous set to false. So going through, you can see the different files that it's looking at, and it's saying, hey, this is file 5 of 295, and here's about what % done it is with the directory. This is going to take a while, and here it's telling you just about how many frames are in that video file. That's just there to give you an idea, like if all your video files only have 6 frames, well then 10's not going to cut it. So that's just a point of reference for you. But why is this taking so long? Like, this seems like it's going really, really slow. Well, let's find out. So this is all running on the CPU. The backend libraries that it's using don't take advantage of your GPU, even if you do have one. So it's going to be incredibly CPU intensive, and that is going to be a pretty big bottleneck. And you can see it's pretty much got my MacBook maxed out, and it is going to take a while. So I don't recommend running this like while you're trying to do anything else on your machine. Like, don't be playing in Photoshop, don't be trying to edit video, don't be trying to play games. It is going to be pretty greedy with your CPU, and you might be able to hear my fan kicking on now. So we're just going to fade out, and we'll come back when this is done. And we're back. Okay, so full disclosure, I did not let that run all the way. So it got about 25% through. It got some good hits, and I think it's more than enough to demonstrate how I use this every day and the value that I find in it. So normally I would have gotten a text alert and an email alert saying, hey, here's what I found, but I don't have those creds on this machine, so it didn't work. But let's look at what it found, and I'll try to get across why I find so much value in it. So it created a folder with the beginning timestamp, when we started running it. And it created a log file. So just here were 2 of the video files where it found people. And then here are the examples of those people in the video file where it found. So it's always going to be it's going to be file name and then -1 through however many .jpg. So it looks like it found people in 2 of our video files. Let's see what those look like. Okay, so that is me getting ready for work in the morning. So like, had this been like 3 o'clock in the morning, this would be pretty concerning. So this would be a good thing to know. If it was, say, 2 or 3 in the morning, like, hey, there was some dude on my front porch. And then the other one looks like 11 o'clock in the morning. Looks like probably Amazon, maybe. Yeah, either Amazon or post office. So cool. And I would have normally received these just as attachments in my email. So as I'm sitting at work, I can scroll through real quick and say, okay, or like, hey, I need to look into that further. So I find so much value in this. I hope you all will too. And just to walk you through like what my normal, I guess, flow looks like is every single morning after I go to work, a bash script fires up as a cron job. It rsyncs all of the previous night's footage from my DVR, which is just an iMac in my garage, pulls that down, feeds it into this Python script, and then it alerts me via text and email, hey, here's what I found, and I don't really have to do anything besides look at what it found. So it's really cool. I found a lot of value in it, and I hope you will too. If you have any questions, let me know.